Public comment sheets?
Oh, I'm glad I reminded you now.
Yeah, everything but that.
No, stuff like that's really tough. Yeah. I could probably figure it out, but it's not.
And another thing is, 50% level.
API? She said she would call you. No, wait.
Oh, that's so nice.
No, it's amazing.
Did you check the closet door? You got a super secret stash? That what it will be. You got a super hyper secret stash? Upstairs. So you have to go through one room and then into the next.
I don't have to sit up here, I can sit down there. Okay. Don't leave my purse. I don't want to have to come back in, Mike. That's embarrassing.
That's okay.
People that are making
No, I checked out the videos online. You should. They're very good. You should give Katie's credit. It's very clear. The only thing is you can't enlarge, so you can't really see the expressions, but I think that's just part of the YouTube thing. But I looked at one today, it was like, that looks really good.
He's been around for
Well, this is assessment anyway.
Yeah.
You go to the library and see, whatever. But yeah, I just wanted to check it out before. Because I'm going to be doing it. I'm out.
rotate, that way we can take one down to the pins, take a week, just for next year, we just need to approve it so we can start paying the shit. We're not gonna go.
Doesn't matter to me, but I had like 19 iced teas and like. This is this big. Yes, but it's so good. We were just at Aztec. I was like, would you like to order? I told them to order it. I do.
John? How are you?
Well, didn't miss much last night, did you?
No, nothing was really bothering me. I just want to walk up all this stuff. At this point, anything it takes.
Speaking of that, though.
Good job.
Yeah, I would watch it too. Yeah. No doubt.
Year of my life. Can I put this in? One question.
I did put the agenda.
Decided not to charge us the money for it.
I know there's some people here for the conference. Yeah. My new neighbors. My new neighbors, Jimmy and Sean, live with us. They just want to know time, and so they might have some questions for Tom. But do you have so I'm encouraging you.
Nice crowd tonight. Welcome, everybody. We'll get started in just a couple minutes. If you have any public comment, we have a sign-up sheet up front. Please sign in so we can get to you. Wives of newly elected officials can't come and go against the council. This seems to travel for 5 to 7 minutes.
I just stopped wearing them.
Is everybody happy where they're sitting, or do you want to show you that?
Yeah, I want to be out there.
We know Bob has to sit right next to
Phyllis for you.
Oh, no, we won't be staying.
All right, it is 7 o'clock. We go now in our regular meeting of City Council, November 13, 2017. Again, thanks everybody for being here. It's a special night for us. Newly elected officials will be appointed tonight and sworn in. And not appointed, they've already been elected, they'll be sworn in. I will have to take a oath as well again. So thanks everybody. Can I have roll call, please?
Michael Hillman.
Here.
Kate Collier. Here. Tracy Stokes. Here. Bob Boland.
Here.
John Curtis.
Here.
Jason Siegel.
Here. Please stand for the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. We have an agenda in front of us tonight. And I need, before we do that, I need a motion for the agenda, please.
I'll move to approve the regular meeting agenda for November 13th, 2017.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Did everybody get the agenda? Andy, you have any staff? You have anything to add tonight? No?
I don't think there's any space.
There's not.
Oh, yeah.
I squeezed and I squeezed.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We'll move on. Council, do any of you feel you have a conflict of interest tonight? All right, we'll move to the minutes. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes from October 23rd, 2017.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Everybody read the minutes?
Yep.
Everybody's good with them?
Good.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. We'll move to the bills. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve bills to November 13th, 2017.
I would second. Motion and second. Jason, what'd you find this week?
Page number 5, second line item, express toll.
Somebody on the road?
Yeah, we had Zach went to training.
Okay.
And they read the license plate, his car doesn't have the tag on it.
Oh, yeah, that's and I see somebody's using the rec center passes, that's good. Although not a lot in 3 months. That's it, I think. Yeah, that's all I got.
All right, anybody else? All right, roll call.
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Kate Collier.
Yes.
Tracy Stokes.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis. Jason Segel.
Yes.
All right, it is time. I don't know if it's time to bring the new council members on. Also the time to say bye to Kate Collier. Kate, thank you so much for your service to this community. It's been a pleasure working with you. You've always brought, most of the time, brought some great ideas to the table.
Brought some zing to council.
Brought some
I promise
zing.
that I'll still do that as in the audience, don't you worry.
And it's been a pleasure serving with you.
Absolutely, guys.
And I know Kate is on HPRC and also the planning commission. I'm sure, or
I'll find some other
almost
things to
sure
do.
that she is going to continue to do that. You 10 years?
10 years.
Kate served 10 years for the city. She was appointed for 2 years, ran 2 consecutive successful campaigns, and served for 8 years. So again, thank you, Kate. It's been a pleasure. I know you'll be around. and
Absolutely.
We love you.
Well, thanks a lot, guys. It was a pleasure.
Losing your glasses.
Oh,
Hold on.
my wife's taking pictures.
I love you guys too. I wish you guys the best, honestly, and I wish Mike Ewing as well, and long term, 8 years would be great. Bob, this is my second time around with you and John. It was great, absolutely, guys. Come on, we need a bigger bench over here. We're gonna get bigger. Yeah. John, I'll come around to you.
So what we're gonna do now is, and her husband back in the back that's also, I guess he considered served too, because he had to put up with Kate coming home and talk about.
Oh, yeah, that happens.
Right?
Absolutely, guys.
All right.
We're on TV.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna swear, and we want you to, we're gonna have some treats.
Is there booze?
Our refreshment time's gonna only be about 10 minutes, and then you can go wherever you'd like.
No, but be sure to eat a cookie.
Did Jason bring him?
Always welcome to Jason Reed's brownies.
And Kate, that's your gift up there.
So now, at this time, we're gonna swear in the newly elected officials for Ward 2 and Ward 1, also myself. City clerk was also re-elected, so we'll all have to be sworn in. And Bob Boland. Bob's done that so many times, and it's good.
He could probably read it without even,
So we're gonna do this one at a time.
anybody wants to go first?
Who swears you in, Diane?
Kate,
Kate,
Oh, okay.
KD.
KD.
You want to be first?
Of course.
Being footage in? Yes. I, Michael Hill. I, Michael Hillman, do solemnly affirm that I will support and uphold the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and the laws of the state of Colorado, and that I will faithfully, well, and truly, and to the best of my skill and ability, perform the duties of mayor for the city of Idaho Springs, upon which I'm about to enter.
I do.
Congratulations.
Let's go ahead and get Bob.
You have to turn around and face that way.
Oh, yes, just a little bit. There you go.
I, Robert Boland,
I wrote,
do affirm that I will support and uphold the Constitution of the United States,
you solemnly,
Just answer it. Yes.
support and affirm that I will support uphold the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution and the laws of the state of Colorado,
the Constitution and the laws of the state of Colorado,
and that I will faithfully,
and I will faithfully,
well and truly,
well and truly,
and to the best of my skill and
and
ability,
to the best of my skill and ability,
the duties of council member Ward 3
perform the duties of council member for Ward 3,
for the city of Idaho Springs, upon which I'm about to enter.
for the city of Idaho Springs, upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. I've never done this before.
All right. Mike Dewey?
Thank you. Fill your shoes.
You do a great job.
Mike is fine, because there's too many mics already.
I, Mike Buick, do solemnly affirm that I will support and uphold the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and the laws of the state of Colorado, and that I will faithfully, well and truly, and to the best of my skill and ability, perform the duties of council member Ward 2 for the city of Idaho Springs, upon which I'm about to enter.
I do.
Congratulations. Face the camera. I, Scott Cannell, do solemnly affirm that I will support and uphold the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and the laws of the state of Colorado, and that I will faithfully, well and truly, and to the best of my skill and ability, perform the duties of council member Ward 1 for the city of Idaho Springs, upon which I'm about to enter.
I do.
Congratulations. Katie?
I, Diane Brees, do solemnly affirm that I will support and uphold the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution and laws of the state of Colorado, and that I will faithfully, wellly, and truly, to the best of my skill and ability, perform the duties of city clerk and city treasurer for the city of Idaho Springs, upon which I am about to enter.
I do.
Congratulations.
Okay.
All right, so what we're gonna do now is just take a few minutes. We're gonna have some snacks. If Kate wants to leave, she can. If
She
she'd
has to
like
open her
stay,
gift first.
Phyllis has got a nice comfy seat for her. We're gonna take about 10 minutes and then we'll get right back into our meeting. So come and join us, everybody.
It's an empty box.
So, new people are starting. Whip out. Yep. Off to a good start, huh?
Thank you, honey.
All up there on the dais?
I'll let you.
So what this process looks like, I do miss it. I miss just learning more and having good constructive conversations. And working with great people, and that's the other part. Scott will kind of.
Are you funny? How you doing? You too?
I just want to combine be nosy.
Say that you're going to join again?
I have to.
I think that's next on the agenda.
This is perfect.
I missed you though.
What I've seen?
I met most of them at 2072, so.
No, we're going back east. Oh, is that right? So I was in Maryland. I grew up just outside DC, Maryland. And we, most 15 years we've been here, we've never gone back east, and my stepmom is a little older and may have to move out of her house. About to surprise a year to do it. I've got one daughter who's back east anyhow, so she just comes down to us. Yeah, we're going back for a week. I leave Tuesday, I'll be back here the following.
Job. I left my work.
That's actually not the whole thing and trying to do and all the work you get to have on Monday nights now. Yeah, we got to start. So we're trying to get it. We're going to need
Have you ever seen data pieces?
There's a lot of things from my
On the arts board, I have high school on like Verge,
that's what the competition is. The other thing is, next week you're going to the problem is we've always studied. So all of the strategies. So next, we're going to go through all that and we're going to start prioritizing like on with the workforce. Actually start.
Mike, is everybody happy with this? But you gotta let me sit down.
We have plenty. The help I really needed was on Friday.
How are you, Alan? You good? Yeah. You can go around the other way.
Mr. B-Wade?
Better, and all this is gone.
Give me your seat.
No chance you're going, right?
You're on YouTube.
Right here?
It's you. Right next to there.
So what do you think of the chairs? Inside joke, sorry.
All right, well, it's nice to have a full board, 7 people. It's going to be fun for the next 4 years. Well, a couple of you have to rerun yourself. What we'll do here in the near future, I want to have a retreat with everybody. We'll do a retreat. We'll bring our city attorney in and kind of talk a little bit about what you should and shouldn't do as a council person. Keep yourself in the city of hot water, what we should do. And also with the, with that, we'll talk about what we should be doing. And kind of your role, our roles in the community and things that you should be talking to your constituents about and being open. All right, we're going to move right along. Do I have any unscheduled public comment?
Yes, you do.
Diane.
Thanks, Andy. Okay, we'll move on to the Phyllis Adams. And she's coming in and representing and talking for the position for the Chamber of Commerce.
Yes. My name is Phyllis Adams. I'm the Executive Director. Can I put the lid down on this
Yes.
without messing anything up?
We're good.
I'm the Executive Director of the Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here tonight to invite you all 7 of you, to join us for Small Business Saturday on November 25th. It is, it's become a tradition in many parts of the country. It was started and is still sponsored by American Express. It's a day to recognize, celebrate, and support the small businesses and the amazing contribution they make all across the country to the economy. And we certainly know that here. So the Chamber will be in Citizens Park, free, handing out some merchandise. We're talking with all the businesses, trying to get them to participate by offering some sort of a discount. Up to them. It'd be great to see half off on everything in the store, but that's probably not going to see that. And so, to, on the one hand, tell you about it, and on the other hand, to make a bit more of a show, I have gifts for each of you. These are some of the things that will be passed out that day. And then, of course, we're telling everyone, wrap it all up with the tree lighting that night. Just make a day of it, come downtown, get a start on your Christmas shopping, get in the mood, do what you need to do, and then be here for the tree lighting.
Is that under $50?
I'm sorry?
Just-
Yes. They were free.
I got a question for you. Are we doing it, is this going to be just downtown or is it citywide?
Yes. The focus is obviously on Minor Street, but yes.
Okay.
So,
Look at there.
get this lovely shopping
First night on the
bag
job, you already got some
Right,
goodies.
got some swag already.
for all the things I know you're gonna wanna buy, because I know how you all support sales tax, because you all love to spend it. Thanks, yeah.
Thank you, Chamber of Commerce.
They should, I don't know if they'll tell you what their deal is, but they will have signage.
Some of the slides are already up on minor items. It's very nice.
They will have signage, and if they tell me they're gonna participate, I'll get them on our Facebook page.
Oh, my wife is gonna love this, too big.
Yeah, it is. So, we'll see you all. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, thank you, fellas. All right, we will move on down. Okay. We have, next on the agenda from our planning and community development, Alan Tiefenbach. Alan has prepared, revisited, and has pretty much put together the whole comp plan with some input from lots of people, planning commission. We all feel that he's done an excellent job on this comp plan. We're very proud of it. Thank you, Alan, for all the hard work and time that you put into that comp plan and listening to all the feedback and questions and answers. And what have we had, three public meetings?
Correct.
Yeah, 3 public meetings.
Not including the planning commission, but you know I'm training with Indian Hot Springs right now, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
After all that build-up, I'm sort of disappointed now. Let's see.
Well, so I don't have to repeat it, right? Okay, we are now gonna move into the Indian Hot Springs Employee Modular Site Plan.
All right. Good
Betty did a
evening.
wonderful job on this too. So.
Good evening, council, and congratulations to our 2 new council people. Welcome aboard. I'm Alan Tiefenbach. I'm the Community Development Planner for the City of Idaho Springs. So this is a site plan proposal for several modular units at the Indian Hot Springs. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background and a real short presentation just to kind of familiarize us. So the way that our municipal code reads, it says that in a commercial zone district in C2, that a building permit cannot be issued for any new buildings without going through this site plan process. Depending on the acreage of the property is whether it is reviewed administratively by me, whether it goes to the planning commission, or whether it goes to the city council. Technically, the property itself is comprised of many parcels making up more than 35 acres. Because it makes up more than 35 acres, this needs to actually go through city council approval. So the property is zoned commercial too. Pretty sure everybody here knows where the Indian Hot Springs are. There's a whole mess of parcels here. So what this is in particular is that this is a proposal to remove 2 existing, basically trailers, and to replace them with 2 duplex modulars. And I'm going to give you just kind of an idea of what they look like. So obviously everybody knows this development. Here is where the actual pool is. Here's the Hot Springs building. Here is one of the motel buildings. And then over here to the south, there are these 2 little trailers, basically. And the applicant wants to remove these 2 trailers and replace them with 2 new modulars that are duplex units. And the purpose of this is for employee housing. And just for a little clarification, C2 doesn't allow duplexes, but because these are employee units that are associated with a big commercial complex, it actually is allowed by the zoning, because the zoning allows mixed residential and occupancy in those kinds of guest quarters. So this is not a standalone residential use. These are units that are part of the Hot Springs complex. I want to show you a little bit where we started and then where we got today. So this has been a process of talking with the applicant and the applicant's architect for longer than a year. And where we started out was this. This was the first modular that was proposed. This was back, I believe, in August of 2016. Staff worked with the applicant's architect for quite some time. And again, I'm going to show you. So if you look at, oops, did I just get us lost? Let's see. Here we go. zoom too far down. So this is the motel building that's existing there now, and the two modulars are going to be directly next door to this. So working together with the applicant, we got from the modulars that I showed you to this. So these are the same color, relatively the same kind of architecture. They put pitched roofs on them. They match the paint color. They put little pitched elements above the doors. They put window frames on the windows with shutters. So basically they're very comparable to the architecture that's out there now. We wanted them to blend as well as we could. Just a real quick overview on what happened with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commissioners were mostly supportive, but they did express concerns about, first of all, whether or not we should continue allowing modulars in the city of Idaho Springs. That was the first thing, is whether we wanted to go that direction. There was also some discussion in regard to is whether or not this was a time to try to start upgrading all of the architecture for the entire Hot Springs complex. There was a long discussion about that. It was staff's position that because of the size of this project, two very small little modulars, that this would not be, that we did not believe that this would be the appropriate time to require the applicant to start doing whole-scale upgrades to all of their architecture. The other thing is, it would be difficult for us at this juncture to determine what future architecture of the entire complex would look like just based on two small modulars. The third thing that's important to know is that the whole point of these is to make affordable housing for the employees. So there is a certain amount of cost that has to be taken into account. If staff require too many improvements in regard to these modulars, it sort of defeats the purpose of low-cost employee housing. So again, staff certainly agrees with the Planning Commission that if there were a larger project, whether they were redoing the motels or redoing the hot springs, staff would be working closely with the applicant to really start looking at what is the overall scheme. But in this position, just for a couple of smaller buildings for the employees, staff thought that this was appropriate because they basically match exactly what's there now. At that, so the Planning Commission recommended approval 6-1. One dissent, which was again because of what I talked about, and staff recommends that the City Council approve this site plan. Questions?
Is there a possibility for this to eventually become a strictly residential unit just by default, just for maybe they're having problems keeping employees, etc., and then they have no other choice but to figure out some other use for the building?
This kind of comes down to, I'm gonna sort of put this in comparison, is that there could be businesses that occur on the main street that aren't technically allowed on the main street and will occur unless somebody complains. By the zoning, they're not technically supposed to be standalone duplex units. They're supposed to be caretakers. That's what the zoning allows. If they started renting these out as individual units and somebody complained and it ended up being a code violation, then they would have to go through a rezoning or a conditional use.
Okay.
But by right, no, they're not supposed to rent these out. These are only supposed to be associated for the employees of the Hot Springs complex.
And if at any point in time they decide they want to start renting this out, how does that information come across to the city?
Well, we're complaint driven, at least as far as I know, and so someone would complain, the zoning enforcement officer would find out, the police chief would tell us. If that were the case, then they would be served with a zoning violation and they would have to do either a conditional use or permitted rezoning. Can I absolutely guarantee you that they would be rented? No. Okay. I mean, there's a certain, I can't absolutely enforce any kind of zoning violation from not happening. It's not supposed to occur, and if it does, they're technically not operating within the zoning.
All right, and then in the future, if they so desire to do some upgrades to the overall architecture as your one no vote from the Planning Commission, would these modulars possibly be able to reasonably be upgraded?
To an extent. These are prefabricated, so they can do exterior improvements, they can change elements on windows, they can do a little with colors, you know. Can they create a completely different type of architecture, like building structure? Probably not.
Right.
But what the architect sort of demonstrated here was, for instance, putting these little pitched elements on to match the pitched elements next door, putting in shutters that are brown and white to match. So they can do stuff like that. But remember, at the end of the day, that these two little units are going to be, when you're looking at the Hot Springs complex, they are going to be up there in the back. So these are not much more than an outbuilding associated with it. So yes, we would be sensitive to it.
And how many employees are they trying to house in these units?
I would leave that up to the applicant. There's 4 units, 2 duplexes. I know that Kelly with the Hot Springs is here, and I'm sure that he can answer that question for you if you'd like him to.
These are on foundations?
They are on foundations. These are prefab modular, so these aren't trailers. They don't roll.
How old are the current modulars? Do they have an age?
1950s, but Kelly could probably answer that. They're pretty dilapidated.
Pretty close to that.
1950s.
And the question about how many employees you're talking about housing in those units?
Bring him up.
Well, it's per the bedrooms that we're gonna have there, so we're gonna have, what, 4 total bedrooms.
Well, I think it's an upgrade from what they have right now.
Yeah,
It is.
That was obviously staff's position. I mean, is it ideal? Probably not, but it's a whole lot bigger upgrade than what is there now.
Well, on the base level, it's a small solution to our workforce housing problem.
Well, in the future, we actually are planning potentially to do more with our campground that way, but we had to see what basically this is our dummy, exploration entities. And, if it goes well, we think it's gonna go well, but if it doesn't, it will probably, I know the lease pretty well, they'll just stop. But if it goes well, we are not fond of the cabins that you see down in the campground. So we were thinking of doing 2 and 3 bedroom cabins potentially, because we are always turning people away. The bigger families, the most we can occupy for rentals before, so this is kind of a way for us to figure out, is modular the way to go, or do we go back to the styles that were already there, which is a lot cheaper, but we have a lot more headaches.
Right.
So going forward, we have so much space that we could utilize for different types of buildings, but we're really just focusing on, and these I can tell you will probably never, they're, mostly people that we bring into work that there's temporary housing, because what happens is, we have the same problem as everybody else in town, in that it's hard to find workers.
Yeah.
And we have so many to find. And so we bring people up who are coming from Denver, from other cities, states even, and then we temporarily house them until they can find a place in Idaho Springs or surrounding cities. And that's pretty much what those 2 are going to be. The other ones will go through actual rental units to be hotels. But these will never be rented out to the general public or anybody who's not working at the hot springs.
Okay.
So transitional housing.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, Mr. Lee's family, he's got, kids and James and some people here, so they'll probably take the first 3 bedrooms. But it's never, we do that with our hotel rooms as well. We built it in, so better bathrooms for them, and it's real temporary. We have them sitting there if they're empty anyway. So we try to get people back on their feet or get people into town, because it's hard for them to commute up here, especially this time of year. So we do our best to get them into town. Some stick on and some rent elsewhere and then go elsewhere. Sometimes it's just transient, we're like everyone else in Idaho Springs. And it's hard to keep a great worker here because they're gonna move on,
Right.
Okay, thanks, Kelly.
Yeah.
Any more questions for Alan? Everybody's good? Okay. Thank you, Alan. Sir. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the Indian Hot Springs Employee Modular Site Plan.
Do I have a second? Okay, we got a motion and a second on the table. Any discussion amongst council?
Well, like I said, I think it's at least some kind of improvement to our workforce housing problem, so, okay.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Michael Hammond?
Yes.
Casey Stokes? Yes. Bob Boland?
Yes.
Ben Curtis?
Yes.
Jason Siegel?
Yes.
Scott Pennell?
Yes.
Mike Bewey?
Yes.
All right, motion passes. All right, we will move down to our list of first resolutions. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve resolution number 25, series 2017, A resolution agreeing to act as the reviewing entity for the state income tax credit program for qualifying historic rehabilitation projects under the Colorado House Bill 90-1033, parentheses CRS 39-22-514 as amended, supporting the city's application for Great Outdoors Colorado grant funding for the Virginia Canyon Open Space.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second on the table. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Michael Hellman.
Yes.
Nate Collier. I'm sorry. Wrong. Wrong list.
That's all right.
Just kind of rolls off the
10
tongue.
years is the same.
Tracy Stokes.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis. Jason Siegel.
Yes.
Scott Canal.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes.
See the way she's got it lined up, if we have to have a deciding vote, it's on you.
There you go. No pressure there.
All right, motion passes, we get that grant going. All right, and resolution 26, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution number 26, 2017, a resolution excluding certain uncompensated city officials from the definition of employee for workers' compensation purposes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. We'll move on to our next resolution.
I'll move to adopt resolution number 27, series 2017, resolution adopting an amended compensation plan for employees and officers of the city.
Do I have a second? Second. Got a motion and a second. Discussion. So, after we had gone home the other night, I got to thinking about the compensation plan. And you know, I told everybody that we took out Blackhawks, which kind of skewed the pay for wastewater mainly and our public works department. Well, I really thought about that, and what I'd like to propose to council is to go ahead and move those two positions up of the original increase that we were talking about before we took Blackhawk out. I do have these here. Out to everybody. Let's see. Do we have, does everybody have the old compensation plan in front of in your packet? So if you look, I have the plan line under Public Works and Public Works and Water and Wastewater, Dan and John, we had them coming up to, I can find it, to I think it was 72,000. You got the old one, Tracy?
I got the old one right here.
Yeah, thank you. And then the revised would bring up, as you can see on this sheet, bring them up to their low range at 76. So the new range for their both positions will be the same. The range will be 76,065 to 108,819. What this does is it gives them a little bit more of a raise than we proposed with the 4%, but it does account for Blackhawks and another number being added in within the average. So what I'm asking, council would have to approve the increase. We already kind of decided on it the other day, but I'm in a position that I wanted to bring this to council to see if council was willing to entertain the additional increase for these two positions.
Can I see the old one?
Which two positions, it's wastewater?
Yeah, those two right here, Scott. This one, and this Public Works. Public Works Superintendent. Public Works Superintendent and wastewater Superintendent.
So this is the old and this is the new. So 72,980, 76,065 for both.
We did, new council members, Andy took an average, looked up, I think, 15 different cities, and we took, what we do is every 2 years, as policy says now, that we'll look at our compensation plan every 2 years, and adjust according to the range, and we want to keep our employees, we want to keep up with the rate of increasing pay, so we don't lose our employees. It's very valuable for us to get employees and keep them. Costs us a lot of money to train them. Being business oriented, Scott, you know how it is. So that's why we do this every year. So we came up, we felt with some good numbers, and these are the only ones that I'm really asking for the council to look at.
So were there any other concerns across the board other than the public works and wastewater?
There is one. Is it okay if I discuss it, Diane? Okay. So Diane should be, deserves a raise. And I am having a little concern because her position is an elected position, and we should have raised that pay before the election. And and I told Diane that I would, and Diane was gonna talk to council about that. If you remember, Diane came in 8 months ago, and asked council for a raise, and we approved it.
Right.
Which was okay. I'm just a little nervous, the perception that, and we know we didn't do anything dishonest, but we sure wouldn't want somebody to say, well, y'all just wait until after the election so nobody else would run against her. And that was the only thing, the only concern I have with raising the range on Diane's position at this time.
Well, and you know, back when she was given the raise, part of that was motivated by the fact that she was also taking on the treasurer's position that.
Oh, no, treasurer doesn't make, it's a zero pay. Treasurer is zero
Right,
pay.
yeah.
If I could,
Sure.
it was based on the fact that, in my opinion, and apparently yours, that the last compensation plan was not done correctly. I had done the research and came up with new figures. So that's my stance, was that it was done incorrectly, and I was asking it to be brought up to the current
So
compensation.
what's the current number? I don't have that old number sheet that was from the previous meeting. Do you remember what the number was for the current?
The minimum was 58.5.
Right here.
58.5?
I believe 58,577.
761. Oh, no. Oh, there it is.
So I see where you're coming from, Mayor Mike, because but at the same time, Diane's not doesn't have a vote on the compensation plan. So that would be, in my opinion, a little bit different than, let's say, we were trying to bump up the pay for city council and mayor, then there would definitely be a conflict of interest there. I'm not necessarily sure I see a conflict of interest with the city clerk, unless this number was advertised when we.
Well, that's where my concern is. If this number was advertised before the election,
Yes.
I wouldn't have a problem with it.
Right.
Because somebody, for the, what's the current rate?
51,505.
51, somebody may say, I don't want to do that job for that. But 58, almost 59,000.
Yeah,
may have had
but
other
from
people.
what I understand, neither one of these numbers were advertised, so it's not like a dollar amount was ever advertised as a way of incentivizing somebody to run.
But that person that might be interested should, as all intents and purposes, could come in and ask,
Absolutely.
is there going to be a standard cost of living raise?
Well, we're already giving her a standard cost of living wage. That is already figured in. This is moving the range of
Above and
compensation.
beyond that.
I feel like we're moving the ranges on everybody's, her range should be adjusted also.
Yeah, I think that the intent of the council on that aspect would be that they're doing everybody in the fair, according to Andy's analysis.
Yeah, I would like to modify my motion, resolution 27, to include the changes that the mayor discussed for the public works employees, taking into consideration the Blackhawk rates, which are certainly part of the local market that we're involved in, and also to amend the pay scale for the city clerk. And that's the motion, and I actually am comfortable with it. I've thought it over quite a bit as well, Mike, and I don't think we can be faulted for, not being fair to the public with money.
Who had the second on that motion?
I'm not.
Who was
John
it?
Curtis.
John Curtis, as amended.
Amended.
Andy?
Just to clarify, that does include water, wastewater as well.
Yes. Water.
Oh, yeah, he just said water.
Water and
He just said
wastewater.
public
and
I
city
just said
clerk
public, yeah,
Okay, so those three positions.
will be raised up to the original,
Survey.
the original numbers that you provided to
In
us.
the market survey.
Okay, any more discussion? Roll call.
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Tracy Stokes. Yes. Bob Boland.
yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jason Siegel.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes. Right, motion passes.
Okay.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you did. All right, now we will move down to,
28? 28?
number 20, resolution 28, but we're gonna hold up on that because Alan's first gonna give a presentation.
Unless you don't want me to.
Oh, no, we want you to.
Did you write this, Alan? This draft?
Yes.
Very well done.
Thank you.
I was impressed.
A year is.
Hopefully remember that with the compensation plan. All right, well, I am pleased to introduce to you the draft Vision Idaho Springs 2017 Comprehensive Plan Update. I'm gonna do a little 10-minute presentation just for those of the public or with the media that are interested, as well as some of our new council people. So what is a comprehensive plan? It's a plan that looks into the future. It gives a vision for Idaho Springs. It's a policy document to provide guidance to the city. Also, it's required by state statute, so it promotes our vision. It's a guide for consistent decision-making. It's used to prioritize our projects and our goals. It's used as the basis for future rules and regulations, and it brings predictable development and processes. It gives us a level playing field so that the expectations on everybody's behalf is exactly what are the city's values, what does the city want to do. Here's what it's not. It's not a regulation. So the regulations are based on the comp plan, but the comp plan itself is not regulatory. It gives recommendations in regard to what should happen. It also does not change the zoning of your property. So whatever your zoning is now, your zoning will continue to be that. It does list preferred uses for your property if you want to redevelop it. In the future improvements, it says this is what your property is recommended for. It does not change how you're personally using your property. It's not an eminent domain strategy. So it's not a covert way for the city to force our eminent domain on you. So why is this being done? Our last plan was done in 2008. Plans are typically reviewed annually, and they're supposed to be updated every 5 years. Much has occurred within Idaho Springs and Denver, obviously, since the last comp plan was done almost 10 years ago. The Great Recession, the Colorado Boulevard construction, the Clear Creek Greenway, our plans to expand the parks, potential redevelopment of the Argo, the improvements occurring along I-70, legalization of marijuana, etc. Obviously, you get it. There's been a whole lot of things that have occurred in Colorado and in Idaho Springs in the last 9 years that are unprecedented. The other reason is in the last 10 years, there's been at least 20 different studies that have been done that pertain to Idaho Springs. I've given you some pictures of them, but some of them are the downtown assessment that was done by Downtown Colorado, and the Clear Creek County's comp plan, which takes this into account, the East End Action Plan, the Boomer Bond, the Virginia Canyon Open Space Project. So there's many, many different studies and plans that have been done in the last few years. In fact, there's very few people that I've met that know all of the plans exist. Everybody knows some of them, but there's plans that were floating around there that nobody had ever even heard of before. So this was an attempt to start weaving these all into one document and reference them so that everybody knew that they were there and how to use them. So in general, the way that this plan is set up is it has the background, the history, and the demographics first. The thing that's really stayed the same is the history. If you look in the old plan, you look at the new plan, the section on our history hasn't changed that much, obviously, because it's history and it hasn't changed. However, a lot of the other elements you see, the land use, housing, historic resources, those are all new elements. If you look at our existing plan, that stuff is all kind of mixed up all over the place, and it's sort of difficult to figure out what you're looking for. In this case, it actually has sections under titles, and it tells you what these sections do and how to use them. So what kind of things does this plan address? Just to give you and the public an idea. Well, some of the things it looks at is where should development density occur? What kind of development is appropriate where? If development occurs in established residential neighborhoods, what densities and what housing types are appropriate there? How do we deal with I-70 improvements? Are public facilities adequate? What's our priority for historic resources? Where are the historic resources? What about parking? What about accessory dwelling units and housing? Some other issues it looks at is public transit, or where should our trail connections and our parks be located? Is there anywhere in the city that heights higher than 35 feet are appropriate? Should our boundaries be expanded through annexation? How do we protect wildlife and water quality? So these are all different elements that this plan addresses. So this gives it sort of a little fancy little picture of kind of what the plan is. So you take, we'll look at what the priorities of the city are. We'll look at what the direction of the decision maker, meaning the planning commission and the city council. It's used as the basis for future regulations. We gained community input. There's been three, well, I can talk about the process in a minute. It's a summary of all the different studies and the plans that I talked about, all 20 of them. And it has all these different strategies in regard to transportation, land use, economic development, open space. Am I going too fast? Everybody staying with me? Okay, I know I talk fast, so I don't always know that I'm talking too fast. One of the things that's new in this plan that you may not see before is the maps that we have now. There were some draft maps that were floating around that nobody knew. They're not on our website. We really didn't have a land use map that was on our website that people could use. So there's numerous new maps. The ones that I put up here I think are the ones that people are most interested in. The first one is the land use map. That is the one that sort of shows what the preferred land uses are in each area of the city. It looks at character areas. It says what is it unique about this particular area, for instance the East End, or the West End, or North Side, or the downtown. It describes those areas. It talks about what kind of development's occurring there. It talks about how development should occur and what kind of character it has. That's the land use map. There's a multifamily housing map, so that's a map that shows where the density should go if they were going multifamily. A developer should be able to figure out really quickly where is the city's priority for multifamily. If somebody's buying a house, they should be able to know what should I expect to develop around my house in the next 20 years. You should be able to have some kind of confidence when you're buying land or buying a house in regard to what the city's position is going to be in regard to development. There's also a parks and open space map that's new that hopefully you saw that shows all of our new connections in addition to the Virginia Canyon Open Space Park. And there's also a historic resources map which shows where our state, our national, and our locally designated historic resources. There's many other maps that I get into, wildlife maps. There's FEMA maps showing where our floodplains are. There are slope maps and wildfire maps. All these things all together comprise the comp plan. So to talk about the process, the first thing happened is last October, staff met with the Planning Commission and sort of discussed how the plan should be organized, and we outlined exactly how that plan should look, and the Planning Commission said that looks good. As each element went forward, staff would post that on the website, would send out notifications to many different agencies, we'll talk about in a second, as well as public input. And then we would present those elements to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission would read each individual element, make their reviews and their comments, send them back to staff. Staff would make corrections and then repost it up on the website with the newly revised. So the Planning Commission has actually seen this plan 8 different times. 7 times for the elements and then 1 time to recommend adoption. So there was a web page that was established, and everything in regard to this plan has been published on this website. We held 3 community meetings. The first thing that we had was a kickoff meeting that was very well attended. We had probably 75 people in this room. The second one was in regard to land use. which was not so well attended. And then the most recent one we had was to present the final plan to the community. And I think we had about 45 people here for that. And astonishingly, it was overwhelming support, which actually came very surprising to me. At the very first meeting that we had, we sent out notices to every property owner within the city of Idaho Springs. We also had a sign-in list that if you wanted to be put on a mailing list, you could do that. And there was also more than 70 different agencies. So that means like CDOT, the school district, Central City, Blackhawk, Georgetown, Clear Creek County, the fire district, the police. All of these different agencies would get email blasts every time a new update to this plan was done so that they could review and comment. And any comments that staff got, we would either incorporate them or I would respond to them why we did not incorporate that suggestion. So again, we revised all those elements based on different comments, brought it to the Planning Commission into a draft on November 3rd. And on November 3rd, the Planning Commission unanimously voted to recommend the City Council adopted Vision Idaho Springs 2017, the new comprehensive plan. So what's next if this comp plan gets adopted? Well, one of the things we're going to do is look at a strategic implementation. If you look at the plan, you'll see that at the end of each section there are strategies. Staff will start through those strategies, figuring out what our priorities and what our actions are, and put together a work program. The reason why is because I think Idaho Springs knows we've got enough plans. We want to actually take some action on those plans. So we're to start putting what those recommendations are and presenting them to you, council, and what our work program is going to be every year. We also will be looking at overhauling all our regulations. You should expect that to happen very soon. That's one of the first things that we're going to do is start working on our zoning regs, our subdivision regs, our land development regs, and trying to make them easier to follow, more pertinent to Idaho Springs, not antiquated. Also, like I said, we're going to make it easier to understand. So staff recommends that the City Council adopt Envision Idaho Springs 2017. The Planning Commission also recommends that the City Council adopt Envision Idaho Springs 2017. And that is my presentation.
Well done.
Anybody, council, have questions for Alan?
I have just kind of a technical, what's the technical difference between households and housing units? Because I noticed a little bit of a discrepancy in.
So household just means the amount of people in the housing unit. Housing unit is actually a quantifiable number.
I see.
So
like a duplex would be
a duplex is two housing units, and what are in those housing units are 3 or 4 or 5. But households, usually the household these days is considered 3 because most people don't have 2 kids anymore. So
yeah, because it was like 883 households versus 950 housing units. So I was
correct
about that.
Correct.
But all in all, I think you did a fantastic job. For me especially, you know, I see something this thick, I'm like, holy smokes. But you made it very easy to read, and honestly, you know, a lot of this stuff, you know, it's hard for all of us to remember the nitty-gritty of something that we, you know, talked about a year and a half ago. And this is a really fantastic way to kind of put all this into a larger perspective for us, and I really appreciate the time and effort that you guys put into this, because it's, I was really impressed. I found it very easy to read.
Thank you.
Council?
Yeah, just one other positive comment. I'm fairly familiar with comp plans for cities many times bigger, or at least several times bigger than Idaho Springs. And this can go head to head with NO. It's really competent comp plan. And I think consequently I'd like to move to adopt Resolution 28, Series 2017. I hope I didn't cut somebody else off who wanted to say something. Okay, a resolution approving the Envision Idaho Springs 2017 City of Idaho Springs Comprehensive Plan.
Do I have a second? Second. Motion is second on the table. Discussion.
I like how I noticed that my house is directly in the center of the Black Bear map that you had. Smack dab in the center. And I got a photo on Facebook to prove that too.
Roll call.
Michael Hellman.
Yes.
Tracy Stokes.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jason Siegel.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes.
Good job, Alan.
Excellent.
And we'll be doing this again in about 3 years.
I haven't checked the compensation plan yet.
That's so good.
I'll ask Andy in the morning what that means for me.
No, well, we now have a good reason to keep this up.
Yes.
They have a really good start here.
It should be pretty easy to keep up now if it's done
Oh my
like
gosh.
it's supposed to.
Yeah.
Once you put something on the back burner.
Oh, you're never going anywhere.
Is there a copy of this here at City Hall for anybody that might not have the internet?
Oh, sorry. So I had to wait first to see if the draft was gonna get approved. I'm gonna go through this one more time and look for typos. So if
Okay.
you can find anything, let me know soon. What's gonna happen is that we are going to send this out to have it professionally printed. We will probably have like 20 copies made, bound, so all of you will get a copy. All of the planning commission will get a copy. We'll get a copy at the library. We'll have a couple of copies here at City Hall. We'll probably put one in the archive. And maybe probably me and the city manager and Diane will have one at our desk.
Excellent.
So you will expect a nicely one with a cover all shiny and all that stuff.
Awesome.
Good.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan, good work.
Mayor and council, I would just like to say that I want to thank the vision of the mayor and council for creating this position,
Yeah.
a full-time position. As you know, Alan's our first full-time planner, and when I came on board, that direction had already been given, that we were, commit to hiring a full-time professional planner in-house before it had been contracted out. And I think we have seen the fruits of that decision and that investment through a very professionally prepared, comprehensive plan. One added benefit I might mention is early on in his career, Alan learned GIS, Geographic Information Systems. And he asked me, one of the first budget requests he had was, could he have $1,000 or so to get get GIS, because he wanted to relearn it and to be able to create some of the maps that are in the comprehensive plan here. So he's taken that initiative to relearn some old skills he had earlier in his career, and he works very closely with Clear Creek County, which has a very robust GIS department. But this way, we're able to give information back to the county, and the county gives us some information, but we have to pay for less information from the county now too. So in many ways, this has been a tremendous benefit to have this position and to help us move forward in the direction with truly community development. And having the title Community Development Planner was deliberate, in that we didn't want just a planner, a traditional planner. We wanted someone who was truly had knowledge of and how to best promote community development. And I think that's exactly the direction we're headed. So again, I want to thank Mayor and Council, and also thank Alan.
I concur, but I've worked with a few planners over the years, and it's a huge asset to have someone as knowledgeable as Alan.
You guys are gonna make me cry.
What, getting mushy?
Right.
Alan's done he's done a great job. We've done some things for the Argo. Phyllis presented something to him to get that done. The approval and the site plan for the hot spring. Really, we have, over the last couple of year and a half since Alan's been here, we're really doing things in this community that depends on his expertise, and it's great to have him on, because I can tell you right now, we're gonna continue to grow, we're continue to change, continue to evolve in the city of Idaho Springs, and we're gonna need Alan to help us get through it. So.
I appreciate you trying to make, you do a really good job of making things easy for us to understand and comprehend. And even with your speech, you're very articulate, and I really appreciate it, because it makes our job quite a bit easier for the efficiency that you put out. That's great.
And we like your wife too, so.
I didn't.
I like her.
All right, do we do roll call already?
We did.
All right,
Yep.
Motion passes. We do have a new comp plan.
Yay.
Hooray.
Been a long time coming.
Okay, we will move on now to the next resolution. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve resolution number 29, series 2017, and resolution setting the official dates for the celebration of holidays for the city in 2018.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 30.
I'll move to approve resolution number 30, series 2017, a resolution authorizing the sewer rate credit and rate reduction to appear on city utility bills to reflect the reinstatement of winter rate averaging in 2017.
Do I have a second? Discussion.
Constituents are asking for it, so everybody's happy.
And it was out, it was out in the newsletter that we were gonna do this. For the new council members, if you don't know what this is about, is, from all time, there's been an averaging for the winter months. And then when the summertime, when people are watering their yards, they don't get charged basically for the sewer. So we do an averaging. Council decided, I'm sorry?
Residential.
Well, business can actually come in and request it. If we identify that they have, if they have a parking lot, they say they need the averaging to, you know, if there's something there that they're watering and taking care of their lawns, and sure, but they have to come in and do it. Council decided to take this averaging out about 4 months ago, because we're really looking at our water rates and how we're paying for our capital improvements from our water and wastewater. And so we took it away, and we found out in a hurry that people were really upset. And I didn't realize, I don't think council understood how much that.
It's hard to see the impact.
Yeah.
The way it was laid out.
And then when people come in and say, my water bill's $400 higher now, we had to do something about it, so that's why we did that. Any more discussion?
So on the next billing cycle, they'll see credits, or is
I
that?
don't know if
Not
All in
credits,
one?
but they'll see the
Reduced.
averaging.
Right.
So this is going backwards.
So this is gonna go back to what we originally had set. Okay, roll call.
Michael Hammond.
Yes.
Tracy Stokes.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jason Segel.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes.
All right, we'll move down to ordinance 22.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 22, series 2017, an ordinance amending sewer rates to reinstate water rate averaging during the summer months, and making conforming amendments to the Idaho Springs Municipal Code.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Roll call.
Michael Hammond.
Yes.
Tracy Stokes.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jason Segel.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes.
And we'll move to ordinance 23. Do I have a motion?
Any of the new guys?
Come on. Make a motion to approve?
Motion to approve ordinance number 23, series 2017. An ordinance amending section 15-22 of Idaho Springs Municipal Code to add the offense of driving under restraint as a local traffic infraction as authorized by state law.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
So this, for you guys, it was a state law. But this year, Chief, the state law for the restraint, was that this year?
No.
Yes, it was this last legislative.
So, it's kind of amending our city law to coincide with the new state law for being able to arrest for driving under a restricted license or.
Go ahead, Chief. Explain.
Historically, this offense has only been written into state courts. The state legislature has vested the authority in the local municipalities to assimilate that as a municipal code violation. So instead of us writing a state ticket that we have to go down to Georgetown to appear in court, we can now treat it like other traffic offenses and bring them to the municipal court.
Costs less money to explain to.
Yeah, logistically, it's, and the guys know when they have to be in court. I mean, it's like a crapshoot when you have to appear in court down here, and the guys know it's one day a month, you know, third Thursday of the month, so they can schedule around it.
Another thing that he made a point is, you know, when they have to go to Georgetown for court, that takes that officer off of our streets for that amount of time versus a quick trip to
Okay, any more discussion? Roll call.
Michael Hammond.
Yes.
Tracy Stokes.
Yes.
Bob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jason Segel.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Mike Buick.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. All right, we'll move into our department head reports or staff reports. City Administrator.
Mayor and Council, my report is before you with 2 requests for action, please.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for Andy before we do the requests? Okay, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement for services with the Colorado and Southern Railway Society related to the restoration project for Locomotive 60 and Passenger Car 70 located at City Hall.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion.
So good luck.
Benjamin, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Not unless anybody's got any questions.
So for new council members, our engine and our coach back here, we're gonna go down to Golden, we're gonna haul them down to Golden, do some asbestos abatement, correct? And restoration of the engine.
The long-term plan is to restore the locomotive and the coach to operational condition through a complete restoration of them. As far as that timeline of eventual, that doesn't have a fixed timeline, but we have a phase right now that we're working on that we're hoping to have done in the next 24 months.
If I remember right, that's a budget item for next year.
We did budget some money
We
for
budgeted some money,
potential of a match.
we'll go after state funds, some grant funds to help pay for it.
We have a number of grant sources that we're gonna be looking to, so the big thing is having that matching. If that matching funds is already secured, then that's half the battle right there.
And this group, these guys, you have like 4 partners, 3?
Primarily, yes.
And
yes.
they've done a lot of work as it sets out here, the light works now.
Yeah, the light's pretty cool. I like it.
So there has been some restoration going on where it sets. The other stuff that we need to do, we're gonna have to take it to a facility. And Golden was kind enough to allow
Golden
us-
is the top of our list, and right now that is in negotiation.
Oh, it's still in
So
negotiation.
it's in negotiation, it's supposed to go, I've talked to the director of the museum, I've talked to some of their board of trustees, it's still waiting to go before their board, so.
How long do you think it would take from start to finish? 2 years?
The first phase that we're planning right now
We're gonna build the
is
tracks
that it
down
would,
there.
it would, we would transport it down there
Right.
in October of next year,
Right.
and then it would come back in May.
Oh, okay, so not that long.
And so that would be the first phase, which would be the asbestos abatement. We're gonna try and get the cab rebuilt, try and do the tender tank, and, you know, that would be the basic start, the big items
Cool.
that we need a real shop to do.
And I believe Benjamin told me that there was a couple of options about transporting it, and that was $30,000 or $40,000.
We have a gentleman who, right now he works up at the Georgetown Loop, but he also owns a truck, a very large truck. He goes between the Loop and another railroad up in Washington State. He has volunteered to move them at cost. So, right now, as it stands, we have that available to us.
Excellent.
So, we're gonna be working to try and figure out what at cost is gonna be, basically the cost of gas and the cost of permits.
My only stipulation is that we have some kind of ceremony. That's all.
That, you know what, that's been in discussion,
Good.
because, one of the things that we don't want to happen is we don't want one day for the train to just disappear and half the town to be like, where'd the train go? And,
Kinda like when water's not coming down the waterfall, all of a sudden everybody's there.
Or Steve Canyon's missing.
Or like the rec center stage that came up missing one year.
a real good example, Colorado Springs had a locomotive in their park, number 168, and it was leased to the Coomers and Toltec Railroad a couple of years ago. And so what they did was they just had a big town thing, you know, it was televised and speeches were given and everybody was down there, they loaded it up on the truck in front of everybody and it was a big show, it was a great thing, so. And you can even look that up on YouTube and see what they did, and so I think, absolutely, you're absolutely right, that's
awesome.
And that's so that the community can see what is happening.
Excellent.
So once restored, will people be able to go in and out of it and see it?
The idea is that ultimately we'd like to have like a piece of track, a place where it could run on occasion. Maybe have a new shelter for it where it could be protected, and so as far as what kind of shelter and what that would be, that's still in discussion. I mean, right now we're trying to get it restored. Then we'll worry about, that's the next phase.
And we've had discussion about putting a cover over it.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions, comments? Roll call.
Michael Helms?
Yes.
Tracy Stokes?
Yes.
Rob Boland?
Yes.
John Curtis?
Yes.
Jason Siegel?
Yes.
Scott Pennell?
Yes.
Mike Buick?
Yes.
All right, move on to the next request, please.
Make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign a grant application related to the restoration of the West End House number 2.
Have a second. Motion and second. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call.
Who seconded that?
Scott Pennell.
Mike Hillman?
Yes.
Tracy Stokes?
Yes.
Rob Boland?
Yes.
John Curtis?
Yes.
Jason Siegel?
Yes.
Scott Pennell?
Yes.
Mike Buick?
Yes.
And I guess we didn't tell the new member, this is the host house at, I think it's 7th, 8th? It's 8th in Colorado?
6.
6th in Colorado?
Yeah.
There was a gentleman that passed away here in the community and left some money to help restore that. And we're gonna use those funds, leverage for grants, to come up with enough money to do it, that host house is on our historic sites and facilities. So that'll be something that we'll get.
What was that, 25,000 that you left?
25,000. Okay, city clerk.
Mayor and council, I just have my staff report for your review with no request for action.
Okay, any questions for Diane?
How's the new employee working out?
Great,
Good.
I think she's gonna be a keeper.
Good.
I'm gonna chain her to her desk, so she's gonna be a keeper.
Excellent.
We have our sales tax report. I'm not liking it too much, because we're about $20,000 down this month. But, and you don't have the year-to-date, do you? Diane? Year-to-date? What's our year-to-date compared to last year?
So it's 8.22% increase.
I don't think I got that one.
This one?
He did.
No, see, I got this one.
Yeah, it's 8.22% increase.
Oh, maybe I just didn't.
Yeah, we're on that page.
It's on the back of her report.
Looking like we're about $175,000 up in sales tax for the year. Pretty good. Okay, let's move on. City treasurer,
Nothing at this time.
police chief.
Mayor and council, I'll refer you to my report. I originally had 2 requests for action. I'm gonna ask that we table the one regarding the amendment to the Colorado Mounted Rangers till the 27th. I have some follow-up on verbiage I have to hammer out with them. The other request for action is I'd like to request approval and permission to order a patrol vehicle. This is a vehicle that is budgeted for next fiscal year. If we order it now, we won't receive it till next fiscal year. But it'll hasten us receiving it at the beginning of the year. So if we order it now, I anticipate we can receive it in February or March.
All right.
Even this early, it takes that long.
Yeah, there's a list. This one may take a little, it may not take as long. We're changing the scheme of the vehicles. You know, we've been getting the black and white vehicles. The white portion of the vehicle is not paint, it's a plastic wrap. You know, you see like, it's not different from like you see the boats going down the.
Yeah.
And what happens is every time that gets a nick, it's a tear in the wrap that, unlike a black and white, you know, we can't fix it with touch-up paint. So, after consulting with the guys, we're gonna just black vehicles with big white police letters, italic. So it'll look kind of classy, but it will, you know, alleviate the problem. The cars look kind of ratty after.
Maybe less maintenance on the exterior.
Yeah, and you know, there's certain things you can't do. I mean, you know, you can't put certain polishes on the vehicle with the wrap, and it's just more trouble than it's worth it.
And what kind of vehicle is it?
It'll be another Explorer, another Ford Explorer. This go around, we're not getting the double turbochargers. I know they're really sexy, but you know, our fastest speed limit in town now is 25 miles an hour, and I am not a proponent.
You don't need the turbos for that?
What's that?
You don't need turbos for that?
Yeah, you know, you know, it's rare that we would need it. I mean, you know, the guys getting so few pursuits. Most of them, they have the good sense to terminate. So, So there'll be a little savings there as well.
All right, do I have a motion?
Move to approve the order of a patrol vehicle budgeted for fiscal year 2018 with the understanding that the vehicle will not be accepted or invoiced for until January 1st, 2018.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? You remember what we budgeted for that car?
I believe it's around 55,000.
All right.
And by the way, that includes like the cage and the lights and
Right.
and all that stuff.
The radio and,
The radios, I may actually have the money this year for the radios.
okay.
So yeah, but it wouldn't include the radios. We actually, the cost of the radios will be less because we've gone to a dual band radio instead of having 2 radios in the car, where I would go to 1 radio, where, we can talk to everybody in the universe.
You roll call.
Michael Hellman?
Yes.
Tracy Stokes?
Yes.
Bob Boland?
Yes.
John Curtis?
Yes.
Jason Siegel?
Yes.
Scott Pennell?
Yes.
Mike Buick?
Yes.
All right, we'll move to John, Public Works.
Mayor and council, you have my staff report. I do have one request for action, and that is for Christmas display material to replace the candy canes and stars on the light bulbs that nobody seems to like anymore.
But you only spent half the money that we were allowed for, right?
Katie and Diane were trying to spend it, we just haven't. We've spent more than that. We've spent some more on lights, but we haven't spent it all.
In other words, this is the opening round.
Well, after next year, we have to worry about doing the whole town.
Yeah, right. That's right. New roads.
Proudly made in America. Good job.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I would move to approve $7,398 to Temple Display Limited for holiday decorations from line item 1021-5040.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? Roll call.
Michael Hellman?
Yes.
Tracy Stokes?
Yes.
Bob Boland?
Yes.
John Curtis?
Yes.
Jason Siegel?
Yes.
Scott Pennell?
Yes.
Mike Buick?
All right, Public Works, water and wastewater.
Mayor and council, I'll refer you to my staff report. One request for action. We're not gonna be paying $320,000 this year. It's budgeted for next year. We're trying to get the filters and the skid parts. We've got to do submittals, and for us to have Siemens or Evoqua get started on that, they need something from us saying we're actually gonna go through the full project. So if we can issue a purchase order now, they can get started on those submittals, and we won't be billed until the submittals are approved or after January 1st, whichever one's later.
I'm sorry, what is a skid upgrade? I don't know what that is.
We've got 2 skids that hold 9 filters apiece. That's what we run the water through, is the water treatment.
This is our water plant of 103.
Okay.
Producing water.
Okay. Okay. So essentially, they're just 90 filters. They're microfiltration filters.
Okay.
Push water through them, chlorinate, set it down the road.
Very modern plant, really.
So when they built the plant, Mike, they had skids.
Okay.
It was originally built for potential annexation. So they built the plant and they built enough capacity on the water plant so we could produce enough water. The annexation to Fort Hill never happened. So we can run with 2 skids, really 1 skid we can almost run.
Depends on the time of year and the conditions of the
whole
water.
city. But we had 2 of them up and running. The other one was used as parts, so they've been taking parts off of it over the years. And now it's a dinosaur that would have to be built.
Okay.
So,
Okay, very good.
and the reason we're doing that is we feel that as we evolve in the city, that we're gonna have to start producing more water, and we want to be prepared for that.
Okay.
City's changing again.
All right.
Um,
So this is move to approve up to $320,000.
Essentially, how that's gonna work is, in January 1st, they're gonna ask for 10% down on that. So the most we would pay out of pocket would be about $32,000 for this. The rest of that contract's gonna be transferred to a contractor once we go through the bidding process, and then we'll just pay the contractor.
And so should this be a work order? $320,000? $20,000 work order, or does it matter?
Purchase order.
I mean, purchase order, I'm sorry,
Yep.
purchase order. So whoever does the motion.
And what was in the budget for that line item?
Well, I've been talking with Andy, it should be 450.
Okay.
So that should be with the contractor, once we get it on, it should come under.
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve $320,000 to VOA for the third grade skid upgrades from line item 5471-7310.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion? Hearing
Do you have to
none.
go through DPHE? to put
Yeah,
this-
JVA has been doing that, and that's part of, once we get submittals, we'll go through that, the rest of that process. But we don't expect any hiccups, we've already got 2 running, it's just adding the 3rd one.
Roll call?
Michael Hillman.
Yes.
Casey Stokes.
Yes.
Rob Boland.
Yes.
John Curtis.
Yes.
Jason Siegel.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Mike Hewitt.
Yes.
Motion carried. Just to let you know, when they replace the filters up the plant, Dan allowed me to climb up in there and replace a few of them. And if you can believe
You
that.
guys can do all of them if you'd like.
No, they actually had to bring somebody in that was really small so they could squeeze up in
Yeah.
between of it.
It's not a fun job for
Yeah.
sure.
We should all take a trip to the water plant.
You should.
Well, whenever.
That water plant is worth seeing, actually, it's pretty neat.
I would like to see.
Yeah, I haven't been there yet.
Oh, you haven't?
No, I didn't.
Well, we do that. We do that.
Field trip.
All right. Committee reports? No committee reports. That's another thing that we'll do after we get settled in, probably at our retreat, is assign committees for people to touch bases with and bring back to the council. So that'll be coming up too. All right. Well, we can sit around and hang out, or we can go home. Thanks, everybody. It is 7.
There must not be a very
8:30.
interesting football game going on tonight, because nobody worked
8:30, yeah, we're not used to being at 8:30 either. Meeting adjourned.
That's a really meeting.
My wife told me that.
Yes. Now, I will warn you.
I feel like everybody. I asked a lot of questions.
Wow. So, if you don't find any holes in the key, then you just sit there. You have to figure out what your eyes is.
Oh, cool, thank you very much. Yeah, mine still says the audio, and we got probation to do an audit. Yeah, I just don't have it on site.
Bunch of mine have. And we're supposed to do.
Or is it a glass?
They just, no, probably not, and this was just released for this year, we just got that. For a So that's why I'm concerned about getting it. I mean, we're working on that. It's not easy to understand or know. There's stuff that's just way out of place.
I really like it. I was that black bear. That's like literally right in the middle of it. I was like, that makes
Well, yeah,
You know, the process of
Good Thanksgiving. We had a meeting up there.
Thanksgiving week.
I do, November 30th.
I'm gonna make sure that
So my wife
Well, yeah.
If I get your goodies on your way out.
With the exception of all we got from Alan, I may not be able to get right now. We'll see.
Kate Collins, Don Schreiber, Chuck Howard, Cindy Olsen. Yeah, we did. You know, back in the day, they used to have some really serious commission meetings. I mean, for him to come to this law. Yes.
Well, Young keeps talking, you guys have been here.
Of course they can, though.
Well, we'll get the right answer. I keep trying to, still do it different than everybody else. You must not know what we are.
It could be changed. Very good guys.
The second time.
When I ordered all that,
I will. It'll be interesting.
Arch right.
Maybe next year I'll be able to take an actual vacation.
Fingers crossed, always California.
Yeah.
Getting sick too?
Let me give you the account.
Hey,
what's your great day? Man, she's on top of it.
I know.
I took a picture of mine first day I heard Jim. I look
This actually is fun.
I don't know where you find them. Eggs on the internet.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I can see it now, so when I first saw it, much already kind of there.
There was
We've known this place since the
Hey, Uchi.
And it just rejoiced. And
Tell you what I
not
asked
that
him.
there aren't speed bumps, so to speak. I mean, literally. Oh, yeah. Yeah, in the middle isn't going to, there'll be stuff east of it. But we're going to keep it small enough. Mill Street still needs to be a spot. But there's just, we have a list of capital projects for next year, 2019.
Right.
Part of the city budget.
I know, exactly.
been really 9
Day,
years.
it was my So it was my first time.
Yeah, probably sleeping.
So I'm just like, oh, I was actually going to our city council together, which was connected to the radio station. Oh, I should go to that right now.